Last year, a woman sat in my office and cried before I finished asking my first question. Her son had started sleeping through the night 3 months earlier. She still hadn't. Her name was Rachel, 34, former project manager. Took leave after her first baby and did everything right. The feeding schedule, the sleep training, the white noise machine in the nursery. By month 6, her son was doing 7-hour stretches. Beautiful. And Rachel was still waking at 1:40 a.m., 3:15 a.m., sometimes 4:50 a.m., eyes wide open, heart pounding, staring at the baby monitor showing a perfectly sleeping child. Her pediatrician said it was anxiety. Her OB said, "Give it time." Her mother said, "Welcome to parenthood." Nobody asked what time she drank her last coffee. Nobody asked about the temperature in her bedroom. Nobody looked at what 4 months of fragmented sleep had actually done to her circadian architecture. I did. And what I found had nothing to do with anxiety and everything to do with a brain that had been conditioned, at the neurological level, to treat deep sleep as dangerous. That is what I want to explain today, because Rachel is not unusual. A 2019 study published in Sleep tracked 4,659 parents and found that maternal sleep quality had not returned to pre-pregnancy levels even 6 years after the first child was born. 6 years. The baby was in kindergarten, and the mother's sleep architecture was still fractured. And the most striking part, nobody had investigated why. Here is what was happening to Rachel, and what is probably happening to you. For 4 months, Rachel's brain received the same signal every 90 minutes. Wake up, the infant needs you. That signal arrived during the lightest phase of her sleep cycle, which meant her brain learned to surface at exactly those intervals. Neuroscientists call this conditioned arousal. Your brain builds a pattern. Light sleep equals wake-up call. After enough repetitions, and it only takes a few weeks, the pattern becomes self-sustaining. The baby stops waking. Your brain doesn't get the memo. A 2021 paper in the Journal of Sleep Research measured cortisol awakening responses in postpartum women whose infants had been sleeping through for at least 8 weeks. Their cortisol was still spiking at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., the exact times their babies used to wake. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis had memorized the feeding schedule. It's an alarm clock with no off switch because the alarm was never set consciously. It was set by repetition. Rachel's cortisol curve looked like a mountain range where it should have looked like a single hill. And every spike brought her to full wakefulness in a room that was 73 degrees, 8 degrees warmer than the 65 degrees her body needed to stay in deep sleep. Her husband ran warm. She kept the thermostat at his comfort level. That single decision was costing her roughly 40 minutes of slow-wave sleep per night, based on what we know from a controlled study of 765,000 sleep recordings, analyzed by the journal One Earth in 2022, which found that ambient temperatures above 68 degrees Fahrenheit reduced deep sleep duration measurably and progressively. So 2 things were running simultaneously: a cortisol pattern that kept jolting her awake, and a thermal environment that prevented her from descending back into restorative sleep once she woke. She would surface at 1:40 a.m., feel alert, check the monitor, see the baby sleeping, and then lie there for 45 minutes, waiting for sleep that couldn't come, because her core temperature hadn't dropped far enough. Her fix for the cortisol pattern was this: 10 minutes of outdoor light exposure within 30 minutes of waking. No sunglasses. Every morning for 14 consecutive days. A study of 116 individuals published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism demonstrated that consistent morning bright light exposure shifted cortisol peak timing by an average of 90 minutes within 2 weeks. That means the rogue 2 a.m. spike gets pulled forward toward its correct position at 6 or 7 a.m. Rachel started walking her son in the stroller at 7:15 every morning. By day 9, she reported the 1:40 a.m. waking had stopped. The temperature fix was simpler: thermostat to 66 degrees at 9 p.m. Her husband got a warmer blanket. She wore socks, which sounds counterintuitive, but vasodilation in the feet pulls heat away from the core, which is exactly what the hypothalamus needs to initiate and maintain slow-wave sleep. But here is what was strange. She was still waking at 3:15 a.m. The cortisol was normalizing, the temperature was right, and she was still surfacing in the middle of the night. So I asked a question nobody else had asked. What time was her last cup of coffee? 2 o'clock, every afternoon. She had a 6-month-old, she was exhausted, and 2 p.m. felt reasonable. It isn't. Caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours. A cup at 2 p.m. means half the caffeine is still circulating at 8 p.m., and a quarter is still active at 2 a.m. That residual caffeine wasn't enough to keep her fully awake, but it was enough to block adenosine receptors at exactly the sleep cycle transition where her brain was already primed to surface. Putting a thumb on the scale at the worst possible moment, she moved her cutoff to noon. 7 days later, the 3:15 a.m. waking was gone. Not reduced. Gone. Her sleep tracker showed continuous sleep from 11 p.m. to 5:45 a.m. for the first time in over 8 months. This pattern is remarkably common in my postpartum patients. I reviewed the intake forms of the last 40 new parents I saw for persistent night waking. 31 of them, 78%, were consuming caffeine after 1 p.m. When I point this out, the response is almost always the same. But I've always had afternoon coffee. Yes. And you used to have a circadian system that could absorb that hit. After months of fragmented sleep, your adenosine clearance system is sensitized. The margin you once had is gone. What your body tolerated before pregnancy, it cannot tolerate now. Now, some of you watching this did not have a coffee problem. You already cut caffeine early, and you are still not sleeping even though your baby is, which means something else is running. In Rachel's case, there was a fourth layer. She was deficient in magnesium. Her levels came back at 1.7 milligrams per deciliter, technically within the normal lab range, but the low end. And here is what most doctors miss. Serum magnesium reflects only 1% of total body stores. You can be functionally depleted and still show a normal blood test. Pregnancy and breastfeeding drain magnesium aggressively. A 2018 review in the journal Nutrients estimated that 60% of breastfeeding women do not meet adequate magnesium intake. Magnesium regulates GABA, your brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. Without it, the brain cannot downshift from waking state activity into sleep state quiet. Trying to sleep without adequate magnesium is like pressing a brake pedal with no hydraulic fluid. I put Rachel on magnesium glycinate, not oxide, which is poorly absorbed and causes GI distress. 300 milligrams, 60 minutes before bed. Within 5 nights, her sleep onset dropped from 35 minutes to 11. Glycinate specifically because it has calming properties beyond the magnesium itself, and threonate is the alternative for patients who need the magnesium to cross the blood-brain barrier more effectively. There was one more thing. Rachel checked her baby monitor an average of 4 times between 9 p.m. and midnight. Every check involved picking up her phone, looking at a bright screen, reading the room temperature and oxygen display, and setting the phone back down. Each check delivered approximately 300 lux of blue spectrum light directly to her retinas at the exact hour her pineal gland was trying to produce melatonin. Your pineal gland reads that screen and concludes it's the middle of the afternoon. A 2014 study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences compared e-reader use to printed books before bed and found that the screen group showed suppressed melatonin, delayed sleep onset by an average of 10 minutes, and reduced REM sleep. Rachel was doing that 4 times a night with a baby monitor app. Each check lasted less than 30 seconds. Each one was enough to suppress melatonin production for roughly 20 to 30 minutes. 4 checks meant her pineal gland was effectively offline from 9 p.m. until past midnight. The fix was not to stop checking. I understand the anxiety of new parenthood, and I would never ask a parent to ignore that instinct. The fix was an audio-only monitor. She could hear if something was wrong. She could not see a bright screen. Melatonin production resumed on schedule within 3 nights. 4 mechanisms, 4 fixes, and Rachel's sleep was restored, fully, measurably, confirmed by actigraphy, within 23 days. I want to stop teaching for a moment and just say something I have been thinking about for a long time. In 19 years of practice, the patients who stay with me are not the ones with the rarest conditions. They are the new parents. The ones who come in gray-faced and apologetic, saying things like, "I know I should be sleeping now that the baby is," as if their broken sleep is a personal failure, as if their nervous system should just know the emergency is over. It doesn't work that way, and the guilt makes it worse. Cortisol responds to shame the same way it responds to threat. Every night you lie there blaming yourself for not sleeping, you are adding fuel to the exact system that is keeping you awake. Your brain protected you during the hardest months of early parenthood. It kept you alert when your infant needed you. That was not a malfunction. That was your biology doing exactly what it evolved to do. The problem is that biology doesn't come with a reset button. You have to build one. And the materials for that reset are not complicated. Morning light, a cooler room, an earlier caffeine cutoff, the right form of magnesium, a screen that doesn't emit blue light at midnight. These are not hacks. They are the specific conditions your circadian system needs to recalibrate after months of justified disruption. Rachel's sleep architecture on her follow-up polysomnography looked like a different person's. Deep sleep had doubled. The 2 a.m. cortisol spike was gone. REM percentage was back within normal range. She told me it was the first time in over a year she woke up and did not feel like the day was already too heavy. If that is where you are right now, sleeping next to a baby who finally sleeps, wondering why you can't, you are not broken, and this is not permanent. Your brain learned the wrong schedule. It can learn the right one. The circadian system is remarkably plastic. It adapted to protect your baby in weeks. It will adapt back in roughly the same time frame, given the right inputs. Start tonight. Set your bedroom to 66 degrees and take the phone out of the equation between 9 p.m. and morning. Those 2 changes alone begin the recalibration. Give it 7 nights. One note I need to add. If you snore, if your partner has witnessed you stop breathing during sleep, or if you are excessively sleepy during the day, despite adequate sleep time, that is a different condition. That may be obstructive sleep apnea, which affects an estimated 39 million Americans, and 80 to 90% of cases are undiagnosed. The behavioral changes I described today do not resolve sleep apnea. Please see a sleep medicine specialist for evaluation. Everything else I have shared is general information based on current research and my clinical experience. It is not a substitute for a personal medical evaluation. Your doctor is your partner in this.